All right, thank you everyone for coming today. My name is Jason Charter, and I am a proud anti-fascist. As you know, on July 2nd, at 6:30 a.m., federal agents from the FBI and Park Police raided my home. I was placed under arrest, and my home was torn apart by federal agents to be unrecognizable to what it was beforehand. The ringleader of Antifa statement is as absurd as it is false. Anyone with access to Wikipedia and 15 minutes of their time can learn these very simple facts. Anti-fascism, or Antifa, is an idea which simply means to be against fascism. If you are against fascists like Nazis, then you are an anti-fascist too. There is no cabal of anti-fascist ringleaders. There are no Soros checks. There is no funding from Hillary Clinton or any other Democrats. And there's no rich benefactor that supports these activities. By the very nature of the way that we organize horizontally and don't believe in a hierarchy. So how could there be leaders in a movement? And that's why anti-fascist movements have no leaders. The only reason I was arrested was so Trump could put a face to the unrest around the country surrounding the longstanding racism in the United States. I refuse to be his scapegoat. I am no more a ringleader than anyone else. I am a citizen of this country who wants nothing more than to have black people enjoy the same privileges that people like me, who are white, have enjoyed for centuries. I am a white male that is disgusted by walking by statues that represent hate and racism and are symbols for the Confederacy. And in all places, especially in our nation's capital. These places have no place in front of courthouses or in front of any federal buildings. The only place these statues have a place is inside a museum. The reality about this movement, however, is that it's being led by Black, brown, and indigenous youth across the country. People like me are not ringleaders. We're just simply people who are there to support our Black comrades in their fight for liberation from a system that was made to oppress them from the moment they were born. As a system that kills Black, brown, and indigenous youth for simply existing, there are too many of my friends who are afraid to become the next Breonna Taylor, who are afraid to become the next Trayvon Martin, who are afraid to become the next Freddie Gray, or George Floyd, or Sandra Bland, or any of the other Black people who have died at the oppression of the police in the United States. This is why I march. This is why I speak out against symbolisms of hate, such as Confederate statues in America. And this movement is not slowing down despite reports. This is just the beginning, and this is why Donald Trump is ordering these federal agents into cities like Portland, like Chicago, like this city in DC, to crush this movement that has been started. Over 200 people have been subjected to federal charges as Donald Trump seeks to crack down on these protests against racist police and injustice that has gripped the nation from the beginning of this country. I urge everyone to join their local movement, and I urge folks who want to support me by supporting my legal fund. That is at bit.ly/Jason Support Fund. That is bit.ly/JASONSUPPORTFUND. And for media inquiries, you can contact me at jasonchartermedia@gmail.com or at 209-680-6238. At this point, I will be taking questions. Ford?
You said that Antifa is basically just anybody who opposes fascism. About a week before Trump's Tulsa rally, his press secretary said that the president is absolutely anti-fascist. Is Trump Antifa?
No, Trump is a fascist, and he will always be a fascist.
Can you expand on that? What makes Trump fascistical?
I mean, you can start with the policies on detaining undocumented people in this country, the fact that they're keeping them in cages, and we don't even know the reports going on currently because we can't FOIA, if you didn't know, or do any FOIA requests. So we could start with the camps that he set up for undocumented people. We can start with also the fact that he's sending federal agents into cities to act as a Gestapo force to basically pick up protesters for simply protesting and expressing their First Amendment rights. So there is no way Donald Trump could ever be an anti-fascist.
As a secondary thing on that. You were talking about how you can't be the ringleader of Antifa because Antifa is not an organization. In DC, the All Out DC calls itself a collective of DC anti-fascists. Can you talk about the distinction between a collective and an organization?
There are groups that will call themselves anti-fascists because to be an anti-fascist, that means supporting Black Lives Matter. That means supporting any type of liberation movement, trans liberation, Black liberation, brown liberation, and therefore, sorry, can you repeat the question?
Is there a meaningful distinction between a collective and sort of an organization?
Sorry, yeah. So, yeah, there is a distinction. Because it's an idea, groups that feel that they support this idea of anti-fascism can call themselves anti-fascist groups. That doesn't mean there's a network of anti-fascists. That doesn't mean there's some cabal, some group that's organizing that has a hierarchy. It just means that certain groups are going to support anti-fascism. You mentioned All Out DC. That was actually for a specific protest on July 6th of last year. If you go on their page, it says it was a collective dedicated for just the event taking place on July 6th. So I don't believe they consider themselves a collective currently.
What's your understanding of how the authorities figured out where you were and where you live?
The police have always known where I've lived. I've had police harassment at my house and apartment for the past few years. From MPD to federal agents. So there wasn't, it's not hard to find out where I live.
How did it sort of put you into the person who was involved in this?
So that, hi, Andrew Clark. That actually would be a great question for the United States Attorney's Office. They conducted this investigation. They started this investigation. Now, it's my understanding that there's over 200 arrests as a result of this investigation. All we're asking for is fairness. We have symbolisms of hate in Washington, D.C. Think about that. A district that's over 50%, hopefully still, Black. And every time we go to the police station, every time we go to the White House, every time we walk outside of our apartments, our houses, we're confronted with centuries and centuries of oppression. And this is what Jason has dedicated his life to doing. And unfortunately, this is what's made him a target.
I hope that answers your question. Do you have a follow-up?
No, I don't think so. I mean, if you could talk about the lead, what happened.
Unfortunately, because it is an ongoing investigation, my lawyer would like me not to talk about that.
Okay. Probably for your lawyer, can you talk about the path you have to either charges dropped or an acquittal?
I can briefly speak about that. Right now, well, originally, Mr. Charter was arrested on 2 counts. One was destruction of property for the Andrew Jackson statue. The other one was destruction of property for the Albert Pike statue. As you know, we had a status hearing on Tuesday. There was an indictment a couple of weeks ago that was handed down from United States government, and that indictment does not include the Albert Pike statue. It's only focused on the Andrew Jackson statue.
Why did they expand it? Why did they add 2 new charges for the same thing?
That again is a perfectly good question for the United States Attorney's Office. I think they're conducting these investigations. They're again arresting well over 200 United States citizens, and I think that's a good question for them. Is why they decided not to continue on with those charges.
I hope that answers your question, Ford. Any other questions? Chuck?
Well, I think it might be related. I wanted to ask about the depth of the specific charges, if you could talk about that.
I am facing a maximum of 10 years in prison.
For each, yes.
For each charge. Does that answer your question?
So theoretically, on paper, the statutory max would be 30 years.
For the 2 charges, 20.
Oh, okay.
I hope that answers everyone's questions, unless anyone else has one. All right, well, I thank everyone else for coming out here today. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to contact me at jasonchartermedia@gmail.com or give me a call at 209-680-6238. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's like charter boat.
I have them listed.